Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, April 18th through Sunday, April 24th, 2022. This week we have the sun moving into Taurus, so happy birthday, Taurus suns. This is your time to shine for the next month or so, especially. And for the rest of us as well, we are really experiencing these Taurus energies here. In the northern hemisphere, this means that it is the middle third of spring. So it's a time, well, spring in general is a time of initiation, but the first section of spring, the last month that we experienced, was mostly about initiation, since that was Sun and Aries. So we're still initiating some things, but we're mostly focusing on nurturing and grounding and stabilizing the projects we've already begun. So think about what has begun for you over the last month or so, and kind of take this opportunity to get to kind of flush those out, I guess, ground those things that have already started for you. That's generally the focus for Taurus. But this is a prosperous time. The middle of spring, in the northern hemisphere is a time of abundance. Taurus is ruled by Venus, which is a benefic, so it's one of the more pleasant, easy signs to experience. Taurus likes to, experience the sensual pleasures of life, so comfortable foods, comfortable clothing, etc. So that's kind of the general forecast here that we're moving into for the next month. This week, though, we have the moon is waning. We're coming off of that full moon that we experienced last week in Libra. And this week, the moon will be waning from Scorpio through Aquarius, so losing light, becoming generally more relaxed over time as it loses light, becoming a little bit more low key and non physically focused. However, there is one exception. We do have a third quarter moon this week that will shake things up and spice things up a little bit here. But in general, this week looks relatively peaceful. And when I say that, keep in mind, of course, we're in a very large, long term period of immense transformation. This is a very intense time on a more general or long term level. However, during this long, intense time, we do get kind of short breaks like this where it is relatively peaceful or stable. So I would definitely strongly suggest to make the most of this. Maybe you can relax a tiny bit more this week. And I say that especially because, after this week, we will start eclipse season. So this is really, a nice little break where you can rest or relax before things get a little bit intense and everything is kind of thrown up into the air again in the following weeks here. But as we start this week on Monday, April 18th, we actually have a few different aspects. So first, we've got the moon entering Sagittarius very late in the day. So moon will basically be in Scorpio all day, and then enter Sagittarius around midnight. Almost going into Tuesday, April 19th. So moon is still in Scorpio, so we're still experiencing these kind of. It's interesting with this chart because you've got Sun in Aries, Moon in Scorpio. Both the luminaries are ruled by Mars, so there's kind of a Mars focus that would make things intense and kind of masculine oriented. So we are wanting to be more independent, focusing on ourselves. That's kind of what you experience with the masculine energy. Maybe be a little bit competitive or ambitious. However, Mars right now, which again rules the luminaries, it's in Pisces, which is a more dreamy, kind of more feminine sign. And not only is Mars there, but also Jupiter, Neptune, and Venus, which are all the planets strongly associated with Pisces. They're all there as well. So we've got a Pisces stellium. So as we start out Monday, it's this interesting mix of being competitive and independent, but in a way that is kind of dreamy. It's like we're all sort of in our own worlds in a way. So that definitely a strange kind of energy. It is a little bit dysfunctional, a little bit bumpy as we start off on Monday here, but it will become a lot more peaceful, right around midnight going into Tuesday. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. We do have three aspects on Monday. We've got Sun. You can see here, Sun is at 28 degrees Aries, so it squares Pluto at 28 degrees Capricorn. So this could be a little bit volatile, especially for authority figures, governments. Pluto and Capricorn really signifies the elite class or whoever's in control or whoever's in positions of power. So the authority figures, and also whoever is part of the structure of our society. So that would be leaders of hierarchies and such. They would experience a clash. Sun is clashing with Pluto. They're at this kind of harsh aspect. And also with Aries and Capricorn in general clashing, this is, both of these signs have connections with Mars. They're both very, fiercely independent, kind of capitalist signs, I guess you could say. And when they clash like this, it could be very militaristic. So I could see, maybe a lot of military action throughout the world, or rebellions, protests, things of that nature, people clashing against their authority figures. I think for most of us, we wouldn't experience this personally unless we have planets that are, around 28 degrees of the cardinal signs, especially. So that would be Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn. If you do have planets there, you will be personally targeted by this. You'll experience a lot of maybe anxiety or stress, but you can use that to make change, to take action. You have to change something about your life right now, and you can look to what planets are involved to see exactly what needs to be changed. However, for the rest of us, if we don't have major planets or configurations around those points of the cardinal signs, this is going to be kind of in the background. We can just observe the authority figures kind of dealing with this more so. This one is not necessarily for the common people to deal with, so to speak. Also, though, on Monday, we've got this really interesting aspect where Mercury is still pretty much conjunct Uranus, and um, Venus is sextiling Uranus, and also pretty much sextiling Mercury as well, since Mercury and Uranus are so close. So we've got a few different aspects all happening at the same time. Mercury conjunct Uranus is still in effect. Venus sextiling Uranus and Venus sextiling Mercury all kind of at the same time. So that's kind of crazy. The way I would see this is, first let's just talk about the Mercury Uranus conjunction. So sorry about that. So the Mercury Uranus conjunction would really, to me, symbolize a strong opportunity and potential for waking up, for sudden realizations, for sparks of epiphanies, realizations, sudden breakthroughs, and these are the types of breakthroughs that may come to us just kind of unexpectedly. So you might not even be thinking about anything or really doing anything in particular, just kind of minding your own business, and you suddenly have this realization, like it just comes to you, your perspective just completely changes, and nothing even necessarily happened. That's actually really common, especially with Mercury Uranus conjunctions. They kind of trigger us to wake up and to gain in consciousness and clarity. And in the sign of Taurus, this especially pertains to our finances, our physical world. How are you allocating your resources? How are you, managing your money? How are you supporting yourself as well? A lot of that is financial, but it can be emotional as well. How are you investing in yourself, or what else are you investing in your life? How are you doing that to support yourself, to make sure that you are safe and secure and enjoying life? Um, Security, basically, emotional security, financial security, etc. So we can all have sudden breakthroughs and realizations there. And I would say on a more global or collective level, this could also indicate some volatility with, stocks, economy, things of that nature. Now, when we also combine this Venus sextile, this is really pleasant. This is really nice. Venus is exalted in Pisces, and again, Venus is a benefic, so Venus is very generous. She bestows upon us kind of wealth and pleasure, desire, attraction. That's kind of Venus's thing. So when she makes this sextile, and a sextile is a very nice aspect as well, it's a very harmonious aspect. So this really softens things a lot, and especially because Mercury and Uranus are in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. Venus kind of takes this whole dynamic and puts this really abundant, soft, pleasurable aspect to it. So, yes, we are kind of having realizations and sudden shifts in terms of our finances and how we support ourselves. But I think Venus is ensuring that these are all really, really positive. So, we might realize, like, oh, I actually have more wealth than I thought I did. I can kind of reorient it in this certain way. Or there's certain things, I could be taking advantage of and enjoying in my life that maybe I'm not right now. Things of that nature, where this isn't the type of realization that you have to work for necessarily. This is something that can kind of just come to us if we allow it to, pretty much, and it will be unexpected. I'm saying this in advance, but still, I would I would I would expect this would kind of just hit you unexpectedly, if that makes sense. Um, okay, yeah, that's pretty much what I see for Monday. Going forward to Tuesday, April 19th, we have the sun moving into Taurus. Here you can see sun is still at 29 degrees Aries. It's at the last degree of Aries, so it will move into Taurus shortly thereafter. And moon is cruising through Sagittarius now, so it's trying to catch up to the sun. It's trying to make this trine aspect. It's trining the sun by sign, definitely not by degree or aspect, since the sun is at the end of Aries, moon is at the beginning of Sagittarius. But still, we're starting to get a little bit of harmony and balance. Whenever the moon begins to trine the sun, these are really stable periods where everyone is generally more able to be in kind of a good mood and relax. So we're already starting to experience that with the moon going through Sagittarius. And moon in Sagittarius is such a happy-go-lucky energy anyway. We can all be kind of relaxed, and we can all be more comfortable with getting out of our comfort zone. That's sort of a catch 22, but it's something that we experience with moon in Sagittarius, where we're more able to, it's almost like our comfort zone is not our comfort zone. We want to be, experiencing new things, trying new things, maybe, interacting with people from different backgrounds than ourselves, and kind of enjoying that clashing of ideas or energies. That's what moon in Sagittarius is all about, and it really goes nicely with the sun in Aries for the first half of the day. Once sun enters Taurus, it is a little bit different, but still, this is pretty harmonious, I would say. The luminaries aren't in a harsh aspect, and they're both in signs that are ruled by benefics, Sun in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, and then Moon in Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter. So although Taurus and Sagittarius are very different, one of the common threads is that they're both kind of self-indulgent signs. They like to, have a good time. They like enjoying good food and rich kind of experiences. They like to indulge themselves. So with Sun and Taurus, we can experience the more physical sensations, as I mentioned before. So enjoying, things that indulge our senses of touch or taste, smell, of feeling, etc. And then with Moon and Sagittarius, we're getting a little bit more exotic, or we're wanting some flavor, some color, some diversity with the things that we're enjoying. Going forward to Wednesday, April 20th. Let's see here. Moon does trine the sun. It will be just before midnight, actually, on April 20th. So it's so funny because I'll talk about it in just a moment, but it's almost like just as the sun enters Taurus, the moon will catch up and enter Capricorn just after, right around midnight, the night of April 20th. So this is very interesting. Sun and moon trining so close to two cusps. I think this means that we are, both the luminaries are kind of entering their own earth signs. And I know that, moon is still in Sagittarius for pretty much all of April 20th. So again, this is combining those sensual themes of Sun and Taurus with the more adventurous themes of moon and Sagittarius. So this is a really pleasurable dynamic once again here. And otherwise, moon is kind of squaring all these planets in Pluto though. So this brings a lot of this can bring a little bit of tension just because there's so much contrast. How do you balance, Pisces, which is more dreamy and more feminine in nature, combining that with Moon and Sagittarius, which is much more fiery and passionate. However, both of these signs are ruled by Jupiter. So all of these energies, the Moon and Sagittarius combining with all these four Pisces planets, these are all pushing us to ask the bigger questions, to be more philosophical or dreamy in nature, and to go on, kind of grand adventures. If we can travel, or even if you can't, physically travel, you can travel vicariously. You can travel through fantasy, through, books or movies. These Jupiter ruled signs like a good story. They like an adventure. These are also kind of like, romantic signs. They enjoy that whole kind of thing. And again, it can also be just, interacting with different, foods, or interesting people with different ideas than yours. Maybe something where you can kind of broaden your horizons in that way. So although the sun is in Taurus, we're having a lot of these kind of Jupiter ruled energies that are really wanting us to expand our minds, which is a little bit unusual for Sun and Taurus. Usually we want to be more grounded, especially with Sun and Mercury in Taurus. So I think this combination can be really good for adventuring, expanding our horizons, broadening our souls and our minds, but in a way that is still grounded and realistic. So it's kind of a big mix there, but if you can combine all of those, there is potential to have a lot of really beautiful experiences. Okay, and then going to Thursday, April 21st. As I mentioned, right around midnight, going from Wednesday to Thursday, basically, Wednesday night. Right around midnight, the moon does enter Capricorn, and right as it enters Capricorn, it trines the sun. So we get this really, really stable, positive energy, and it's in the Earth sign. So the luminaries have each just entered their own respective Earth sign: Sun in Taurus, Moon in Capricorn. Moon is in detriment in Capricorn, so that would generally show that we would be a little bit uneasy emotionally. However, Moon is trining the Sun, as I mentioned, so that is such a strong, stable energy with the luminaries in strong agreement that way, having this strong connection to one another. That I think that we'll be fine. This is still really kind of good mood energy, really strong, stable. We're wanting to be realistic. Yes, we've got all this action in Pisces up here. So pretty much all this week we're wanting to dream big and to, ask the bigger questions, maybe to explore our spiritual side a little bit. However, with this with Sun and Moon and Earth signs and Mercury and Taurus, we're wanting to do all this in a way that's very, very grounded. We're wanting to know, if I do explore, my spiritual side, how will that affect my day to day? How does that actually, affect me in a tangible way? Or how can I tangibly, really see or feel these abstract notions, if that makes sense? Which is a perfectly healthy way to approach, spirituality and metaphysics. It's good to approach these things with a healthy skepticism and wanting to ensure that they are worthwhile and accurate. Um, so I do really love this kind of combination of these Earth signs with Pisces. I think it's a really balanced mix here. Okay, Friday, April 22nd. Moon is still in Capricorn. It's, no longer trining the sun by aspect, but it's still trining by sign at least. So still probably strong and stable, still very earthy. So we're focusing on our day to day and our long term plans, really wanting to make sure we're being very grounded in our approach. And although the moon's not trining the sun, the moon does trine Uranus and Mercury today. So again, that's really, really good, especially moon trining Mercury is great for being able to express our emotions, express our kind of deeper thoughts that might not normally be spoken. We can access those more easily, and we're more able to, speak those or maybe write them, I guess. And especially with Mercury in Taurus and Moon in Capricorn, again, we're thinking about being realistic. We're thinking about long-term projects and goals. So we're more able to talk about these kinds of things with Moon trining Mercury. And then very late in the day, Moon will actually cross over Pluto. So this could trigger a little bit more action with our authority figures. There could be some restlessness there because although the Sun has moved on, it's no longer squaring Pluto. Sometimes after an aspect, there can be a secondary aspect or transit that will trigger something else that has not yet given way from that previous aspect, if that makes sense. So, for instance, previously, just a few days ago, Sun squared Pluto, so we had some action there, maybe some crisis there on a authority figure hierarchy kind of level. And that's all well and good. There may have been some action there, but now secondarily, as the moon crosses over Pluto, there it can maybe correspond or correlate to some secondary ramifications, some maybe other shock waves that are also still rippling out in our authority figures and our governments, etc. Okay, that's pretty much what I have for Friday. Going to Saturday, April 23rd. Mercury crosses over the North Node, and this is, to me, the first thing I think of is eclipses, just because remember that whenever the sun gets close to either the North Node or the South Node, that's when you will experience eclipse seasons. And specifically, an eclipse happens when you have a new moon or a full moon very close to one of the nodes, the north or south node, or both, if it's a full moon. So, and Mercury is always close to the sun. So as Mercury is kind of leading the pack, leading the way, crossing over the north node already. So that is, to me, signifying that we are approaching eclipse season. And eclipse season, I'm sure I'll talk about that a lot next forecast, since we'll be entering eclipse season. But just on a real general level, eclipse seasons are where everything sort of changes, and the signs that they're in point to where that immense change and transformation will happen. Because the nodes are in Taurus and Scorpio, this is the axis of possession, of security. It's how we support ourselves. Again, much of that is financial, but much of it is emotional as well. How do we support ourselves, and what do we invest in? What do we invest in financially? What do we invest in terms of our personal relationships? How do we support ourselves financially or physically, as well as emotionally as well? That's what this axis explores. So I'm just giving you a heads up. There's going to be some huge transformation there in the following month or so after this week, particularly for anyone who has strong placements in Taurus or Scorpio. But anyway, back to Mercury conjunct North Node. This is really great in itself, and in general for eclipse season too. The sun by the north node is easier than sun by the south node, so we can leave some of the more difficult stuff for November. But right now we have, the inner planets are approaching the north node, so this is a generally more auspicious or easy time. And with Mercury crossing over the north node in particular, and in the sign of Taurus, this is really, really perfect for getting grounded with our thinking and having like some perfect clarity. I almost can't think of a better aspect or transit for, being really realistic and clear in our thinking. So you can kind of just use that to, I don't know, get a good picture of your life, how are you allocating your resources, things of that nature. That's what Taurus likes to explore. And Taurus, again, like, is a pleasure seeking sign as well. So Mercury crossing over north node in Taurus, we can maybe enjoy something that stimulates our mind as well as our physical senses, so we can, I don't know, enjoy some kinds of experiences, some kind of like pleasurable conversations maybe, or also pleasurable experiences involving nature, since this is an earth sign that we're talking about. So I don't know, walking through nature, gardening, things of that nature. For it probably looks a little bit different for all of us, but you can kind of just think about the general theme there to see how you can capitalize on Mercury conjoining North Node and enjoy that energy. Otherwise, though, on Saturday we do have that third quarter moon that I mentioned. So I would say this, it by far is the most volatile aspect of the week. And that's not saying much. I mean, we experience a first or third quarter moon every 2 weeks, so this is no big deal. It's not a particularly intense quarter moon either. So, yes, it is the most volatile day of the week, but this is a pretty peaceful, relaxed week. So yeah, not much to worry about. But with the moon in Aquarius, the sun and the moon are I should say this third quarter moon will happen at 3 degrees Aquarius, so they're not really aspecting anything. All the other planets are later in the signs, except for Mars is at 6 degrees, but it doesn't really match up. Mars makes a loose sextile with the sun. It's a semi-sextile to the moon, which is a very minor aspect. I don't typically cover minor aspects in these videos here because their effects are very, very subtle. So really, it's a pretty much unaspected third quarter moon. With moon in Aquarius, we do want to be maybe more open to large ideas, or maybe holistic in our thinking. So we're more focused on kind of the group or the big picture, more global or more abstract ideas. And also with moon in Aquarius, moon shows our general feeling. How are we feeling right now as a whole? And in Aquarius, we're almost kind of not feeling as much. Moon in Aquarius does have feelings. It would be kind of a misnomer to say it's completely emotionless, because it's not. It's just that Moon in Aquarius is not naturally expressive of its emotions. It doesn't really know how to act in that capacity. It's not super vibrant in that capacity. It's more vicarious, I think. Moon in Aquarius wants to sort of help others and being so emotionally grounded and not, being subjected to the the huge kind of tides of immense emotion. I think Moon in Aquarius as an energy is more able to help others. So I think maybe on the maybe the best, most ideal way to experience this is we can capitalize on Moon in Aquarius to help others, to be compassionate. Moon in Aquarius, making that square to the Sun in Taurus it is a clash though, so there's some kind of need for change or adjustment, especially with how we are corresponding or how we kind of fit in with the group. Do we fit in with our group? How do you fit in with your community? Or and that could even be if you have a large family or your workplace, your area that you belong to, any kind of clubs or things of that nature that you affiliate yourself with. How do you correspond to all those? Because with this third quarter moon, there may be some kind of need for change there. There may be I don't know, some work to be done or some adjustment that needs to be made in terms of how we associate with groups. And this much of it is online as activity as well. Aquarius definitely is strongly associated with the internet and technology. So it could be a change that needs to be made there too. How do you manage technology? How do you use these programs or these platforms? Um, what kind of groups online do you associate with, and what kind of changes need to be made there? Okay. Lastly, going to Sunday, April 24th, Moon continues to cruise through Aquarius. We are coming off of that exact third quarter aspect. So in other words, Moon is squaring the Sun by sign, but not by degree, not by aspect. So we're kind of fading off of that little peak of intensity from Saturday. Um, let's see, and then we do have a couple aspects. So Mercury is at 24 degrees. Taurus still pretty much by the north nodes. We're still thinking and speaking in a very clear and effective way. Still very conscious and clear in all that. However, Mercury is sextiling Neptune in Pisces, so that's a very different energy. And at the very same, well, almost the very same time, Mercury also squares Saturn in Aquarius. So Mercury is, again, it's our intellect, it's how we think, it's how we communicate, and it's also our kind of our busyness, our day to day, our errands, our habits. And Mercury is kind of conversating, it's having these connections with Neptune and Pisces and Saturn and Aquarius, these two much more outer planets. What's interesting is that both Neptune and Saturn are in domicile in their respective signs. And although Mercury is not in domicile in Taurus, it is, fairly comfortable there. Um, so this is very interesting. Okay, so Mercury and Taurus, we're grounded, we're clear thinking, but we are incorporating into that clear thinking, into that clarity, we're incorporating the spiritual awakening, sort of, especially that we've gained since last week when we had that Jupiter Neptune conjunction. I remember what I said about sometimes, one aspect can happen, but then later another secondary aspect triggers, something else, or it can actually trigger a greater event than what initially happened with that. Okay, for example, the Jupiter's Neptune conjunction, if you didn't experience a lot from that conjunction, you might actually experience more from Mercury sextiling Neptune. Mercury can kind of trigger some, I don't know, energy that hasn't come our way or some karma that's been lagging, maybe behind from that aspect. So Mercury can trigger secondary ramifications from that Jupiter Neptune conjunction, especially because in next week's forecast we'll talk about Mercury sextiling Jupiter as well. So all that is to say basically that we are incorporating these Neptune and Pisces dreams and spirituality, this connection to the metaphysical world, to the non-physical plane. There's a lot of inspiration there, a lot of intuitive messages there. So all that is being channeled into our thinking and the more analytical mind, which again is very grounded. And this is really perfect because again, we are asking the bigger questions and connecting to the non-physical world, but in a way that is very grounded and realistic. Okay, so that is actually pretty perfect that we can simultaneously, have this wondering about, larger than life themes, but do it in a way with a healthy skepticism and keep, one foot on the ground. So that's really perfect. And with Mercury squaring Saturn, that's a little bit different. It's a more harsh aspect since it's a 90-degree square. And Saturn in Aquarius it's more about, well, Saturn is always what kind of binds us. It's limitations that we are sort of meant to overcome if we hope to be bigger or stronger, more capable or more wise. And with Saturn in Aquarius, it's showing that the limitations right now are on a collective level. For most of Saturn in Aquarius's transit, we've had society pretty much locked down for most of this 2 year transit. So, and in general, even if it's not pertaining just to the lockdowns of that nature, it's showing that there's some kind of limitation. Although we are asking the bigger questions and we're being very grounded, all of that's really good. We're doing our homework. We're being grounded in our approach to spiritual awakening. There's some kind of limitation or challenge that must be met if we wish to proceed in terms of our long-term future, our obligations, our commitments. How do we what are our obligations or commitments with society as well? And a lot of it can be technological too. Again, this is Aquarius, so what is binding us technologically or societally with, I don't know, laws or whatever our authority figures or governments are saying? There's some kind of limitation or delay there. And I don't think this is necessarily bad. Saturn's not evil. None of these energies that we work with in astrology are evil. It's just showing that some kind of change needs to be made there. There's some kind of challenge that must be overcome. There's this really, really beautiful opportunity to ground in some spiritual awakening in a very realistic way, in a very conscious way. But to do so, we need to overcome some kind of limitation that's coming from societal obligations. Again, technology, laws, authority figures, things of that nature. And this is really especially interesting too because the moon will actually cross over Saturn and square Mercury kind of later in the day, Eastern Standard Time on April 24th. So it's bringing the focus to these limitations even that much more. And Moon is kind of uncomfortable in Aquarius too. It's not technically in detriment, but Moon and Saturn are almost like opposing forces in general. So so it's really interesting. It's showing that there's some kind of there's so many aspects. It's hard to articulate all of it, but on the one hand, there's this beautiful chance to awaken, but on the other hand, it's not going to be easy. We have to get out of our comfort zone. We have to get over some kind of challenge or obstacle to really take advantage of this opportunity. So that's what I have for this week. Definitely stay tuned next week. There's all kinds of things happening. We will have a partial new moon solar eclipse at 10 degrees Taurus next week, and that will really start the whole eclipse season. We'll have multiple eclipses after that. Mercury also enters its pre-shadow next week. So that's going to be really crazy. We're going to have Mercury retrograde and the eclipse season at the same time. Pretty radical. And we also have Pluto turning retrograde next week. And so we've been enjoying all the planets direct for a couple months now. So we'll have Pluto will be the first one to go retrograde next week as well. So a lot going on there. But please, if you do want to reach out to me, if you have any suggestions for videos or any requests, or if you'd like a personal reading of your own, you can email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. But thanks for watching. I'll see you later.